Right. Welcome, everyone, to the third Pillars Symposium. Pillars stand for preparation, information literacy, libraries, academic resources, and 21st century skills for transitioning from secondary school to college. This event is a production of Empire State Library Network, also known as ESLN. We are a collection of the 9 reference and resources councils in New York State, which are divided by geography and serve the academic, special, hospital, public, and school libraries across New York. With our multi-type library members, the ESLN councils are positioned to connect school and college educators in conversation about academic preparation. Additionally, we would like to thank the directors of the Empire State Library Network Council for their support in helping us bring this conference to attendees at no charge. Today we have 4 sessions, and we will begin with our keynote titled AI in Education, Caution, Clarity, and the Role of Librarians. At 10:45 is teaching about AI, not just with AI, bypassing the cheating issue. Lunch starts at 12, and we encourage you to touch some grass during that time for an extra good break. We'll come back at 1 for practical AI, lesson from an academic librarian's journey. The final session is at 2:15 on AI and the future of work. Short breaks will be built into each session, and we'll share some closing remarks to wrap up the day. Before we start with our keynote speaker, just some quick housekeeping. We'll be using the same Zoom link all day. If you need to sign out for any reason, just use the same link in your email and you'll be right back in. If you have any technical difficulties during the presentation, drop us a line in the chat. If you have questions for the presenter, please submit them to the Q&A located at the bottom of your screen. There are automated captions available, but if you're not seeing them, please let us know. We will be sharing a link to the conference evaluation throughout the day and would appreciate it if you would fill it out so we know what did and didn't work. If you want to refresh your memory of upcoming sessions, check out the schedule at pillars.esln.org. All attendees are expected to follow the Pillars Code of Conduct, which will be added to the chat shortly. To summarize, please treat all staff, event attendees, and speakers with respect. Those who are not adhering to the code of conduct will be removed from the webinar. We're so excited to share the conference with you today. And now here's our keynote speaker, Elissa Malespina.
Hi, everybody. Oh, wait, let me make sure I am. My audio is working. Okay, I wasn't sure if I was, because we've been having fun with figuring out Canva and everything today. Hi, everybody. I'm Elissa Malespina. I'm a school librarian from New Jersey, and I am the writer of the School Librarians newsletter, and the AI School Librarians newsletter. And I write a lot about AI and education. And as you see here, this is what I look like. Don't you think this is what I look like? And AI gets everything correct all the time. I ask Canva, I always do this. I ask Canva to come up with what does Elissa Malespina look like? And this is what they came up with. But I'm so glad to be here today to talk to you about a topic that's moving faster than most of us can keep up with, which is artificial intelligence. But don't worry, today's session isn't about catching up to the tech. It's about understanding what's really happening and how we as librarians can lead with caution, clarity, and a deep commitment to values. So the objective for today is to sort of explore things and explore real world examples of AI failure in education, to understand some of the flaws that are baked into many of these AI tools. And finally, we'll focus on actionable strategies that you can use to future-proof your role in your library. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is an example of sort of when AI didn't do too well and went bad. And this is a real world example for something that happened in the LA school district. So in 2024, the Los Angeles School District launched a AI chatbot called Ed. And it was meant to help families with school information. It was marketed as this 24/7 tool. It was going to answer your questions about any of the children's schedules. If you had transportation issues, you could talk to the chatbot and it would help you. And it would do a lot of those things that normally, parents wanted to know about. And you could get those fast answers, which, as an ex-school board member, sounds like a great idea because I mean, I know that I would get, emails about this, or parents wanted these questions answered, and, right away, and you couldn't always be there. So on paper, this chatbot looks like it's going to be a great way to save time and money and be great. But despite spending nearly $5 million on it, the chatbot quickly fell apart. It gave inaccurate information. It raised privacy concerns about what are you looking at with my child? Like, what information do you have of my child? And the company that made it collapsed. And it left families and students with no answers. The worst part is that there was like little to no transparency by the school board as to like, how did we get here? Nor did they have any contingency plan around it or any real human oversight. So we get to the fact that on paper, these goals made sense. They were trying to reduce the administrative burden, improve families' access to information, but in practice, the bot couldn't really keep up with some of these real-world complexities. Many of the families received wrong or outdated responses, and multilingual support was really inconsistent. And especially an area like Los Angeles, where you have such a multicultural district, you need the ability to have that multilingual support. This is really a cautionary tale of what happens when you roll out AI without significant tools, training, testing, inputs from people that they were meant to serve. And we can see some of the things that happened. Remember, AI is only as good as the information that's put into it. So if poor or outdated information and data is put into it, then poor and outdated information is what's going to come out of it. And if you have no one overseeing it or a human in the process, you're going to have a lot of problems with it. So some of the failures are that despite that $3.5 million, we had a lot of failures related to it. And they're now dealing with those failures. So here are the three sort of key takeaways from this. That human oversight is so essential. AI should never be left to operate without accountability. Second is that community involvement really matters, with making sure that families and staff are part of it, they understand it, they're part of the selection tool and having feedback and understand what's going to be a part of it. I've seen this personally when I was a school board member, is whenever we would roll out something new, if we hadn't had teachers, parents and community members and administrators as part of it, it almost never worked right. It was something I personally fought for because I've seen so many times that things have fallen apart because there was not that involvement to begin with. And it's also really important, especially with AI, it's not something that you can just set and forget, which is what I'm seeing so many people move towards, which is that idea of AI is going to replace all humans. We don't need them anymore. They can just take that over, but we need to continually monitor it and assess it and look how accurate it is. And if we take the human out of the loop, there's going to be problems associated with it. So we know that there are some hidden flaws in AI-driven education. There's lots of them, and we have to sort of realize them and be able to deal with some of them. One of the major flaws is the myth of neutral AI. Everybody thinks it's neutral, there's no bias, there's no problems with it, but we know that that is not true. AI learns from its data. Garbage in is going to lead to garbage out. And if the data is bad and the data reflects racism, biases, sexism, ableism, then we know that what's going to come out is going to be the same. We've seen that just yesterday with Gronk. And their idea was we're going to not put many limits on Gronk, and because we don't want any of those biases reflected. But what we're seeing is when they don't put any limits, it's leading to it saying horrible racist things, and so we need to realize that it is not neutral and that we have to put some inputs into it. So we know that the data reflects all of society's biases, and it's racism, it's sexism, it's ableism, and these biases show up in the outputs like search results, essay feedback, and reading suggestions. If we assume these tools are fair and honest and good, then we risk unintentionally amplifying those biases in our own spaces. So we have to realize that they are not neutral, that they have that. We know that there are biases related to sexism, there's data that shows that if you put in, I was at ISD, and I wish I had this slide. Now I'm going to try to find it for you guys and get it to you guys. But they were talking about how when you put in like nurses into like ChatGPT or Daily or one of those and said, generate for me an image of a nurse, it almost always generated a woman. But if you put in and said to it, generate a CEO, it was almost always going to generate an image of a white male, because that is what had been trained on. And they actually did a study where they looked at that and saw that, like, in a lot of these, you weren't seeing a lot of, like, the correct images. So we need to understand that, and we need to teach our students that and teach people about the problems related to that, because we are unintentionally amplifying some of these biases. AI is great at some things, but it also doesn't always do great at everything. AI is great at giving quick answers and polished summaries, but it's not good at deep thinking. Recently, there was this article put out by MIT about AI and how students learn with it. And they actually put an Easter egg in it to embed into just for the large language model, saying like, hey, if you get to this point, you're really you're missing things because you're summarizing and you're not really reading all of the information in it. So people are starting to realize that these summaries don't always understand all the nuances that go along with some of these things, or look at the other sources in the information. And but so it doesn't understand the context, and because of that it can't reflect on these like complex research questions. It mimics comprehension, but it can't actually reason. And that's a problem when students begin to substitute AI for actual learning. But it's our job as librarians to keep modeling and protecting the value of that sustained inquiry. And we can do that by showing them some of these real world examples, like I'm talking to you about today, and talking to our students about these questions and having them do, different types of experiments like they did with MIT, where they had kids like have AI write the paper and then have them try to go back and write the paper later and realize that they're not going to remember as much. And you can do a mini experiment just like that with your kids in a short period of time to get them to understand some of these problems that we're seeing. But we also know that most AI tools are designed with district administrators and investors in mind and not teachers and librarians. They focus on efficiency and scalability, but not pedagogy. These tools are often rolled out with limited classroom testing, and librarians are rarely consulted. Let's be honest, they're like never consulted. Even though we are probably among the most tech savvy professionals in our schools, that really hasn't changed. I haven't yet. I mean, I speak on AI all the time, but I'm not on the AI committee in my district. Now I'm new to the district. It's a big district, but they realize, like we're really never consulted on these things. And we need to realize that AI tools are also a lot more than we'd like to think. Being used to monitor students through proctoring software, keystrokes analysis, and even facial recognition. Much of what this is happening without any clear consent or transparency. It is quite normalized. We're seeing a state where we're normalizing this type of surveillance. And it disproportionately affects students from marginalized communities. We need to make sure that librarians must remain a last safe space where there's no tracking, no data mining, and not that constant watching. There are examples of this happening all the time. Recently, there was a school shooting that happened, and they were using an AI tool, and the AI tool that was supposed to detect when things happen didn't work right, and it didn't monitor everything correctly. We have also seen many instances where AI tools are now being put into cameras, and marginalized communities, they think that it's one person and it's another person because the AI tools don't do as well recognizing non-white faces. So we need to talk about these things. When I was on the school board, the superintendent tried, and I fought and thankfully got it to not happen, to use a program that would go through students' writings to try to find stuff that it believed they were saying was harmful, and then alert people to the harm. Now, in theory, it was supposed to help with suicide prevention and help get our kids the help they needed. And yes, that sounds great on paper, but it was doing it without consent. It was just searching for keywords. It wasn't understanding the context of what was being written. There was enough backlash in the community amongst students and others that made it so that this didn't happen after I called it out. Thank God. But we need to start to talk about these things and let others know that this stuff is happening. And it's not only happening in schools, it's happening now increasingly in the world we live in. I just read, oh my God, I just read this last night and I was like, this can't be true, but it is true. Now Hertz and some of the car companies are using a tool, an AI tool that scans the car after you have rented it to see if there are any dents and changes, and you will get like dinged if you and charged for things that that AI says happened while you had the car. And so a lot of people are annoyed because it's not working correctly. It's saying things that were there that weren't there. And there's now all of these problems happening, but they're using these, yep, and charges like obscene amount, like a 350 for a ding. So these type of things are starting to happen, and it's everywhere and in places you might not always think about. So I want you to realize that we need to not only know that they're happening, but to tell our students about them, to alert them to what's going on, and to allow them to understand what is happening and to talk about these things. We can't just talk about the good. We also have to talk about some of the problems associated with that. So how do we do this? Because now that I've spent like 20 minutes scaring you, but it shouldn't, it's not only scary. And you can come up, there are strategies to future proof you and to help you to help students to deal with this. So AI can't do what we do best, which is form those human relationships and respond to emotion or mentor a student through a frustration. It doesn't understand nuance or cultural context. AI can write summaries, but it can't teach a kid why something matters. That's human connection, and that's where we as librarians come in. Let's be honest, everybody. We saw what happened during COVID and the pandemic and those remote learning years, and it didn't work right. Students still need that human connection. They need the social emotional learning. It's so important for them, and we can't we can't be replaced by computers. So every time I always hear the thing like, oh, teachers are going to be replaced by AI, I'm always like, no, I don't really fully think so, because we saw what happened with COVID. Parents got really upset really quick. They didn't love it. They didn't love that type of learning. We saw what happens to students. We're still seeing the effects of what are happening to the students because of that human connection being gone. So I don't think, and I could be wrong, and in 2 years you're going to be like, Elissa was totally wrong on this. I just don't see it fully replacing what we as teachers, as librarians do, because they need those connections. And yes, I swear to God, most of my job as a librarian is as a counselor, and not nearly as much as an educator. My job is mainly becoming more of a counselor, to have empathy, to help mentor students. And I think that is something that is so important that we know that AI sort of can't replace. So as AI enters education, our roles expand. We need to become and help teach students how to become prompt engineers, helping those students ask better questions and refine AI prompts. There are some really good tools out there that can help you do that. There's a Wharton has a prompt library that is really good. I will put the link in the chat at the end for everybody to this. They have a really good, and I just found out about it. This prompt library that is doing some really amazing things, and they keep adding to it. And it's sort of made for educators and teachers, but we sort of have to teach them how to do that. And we also need to let them know, and I have a dirty little secret that I always thought like, okay, I'm gonna really have to teach my students really a lot on how to prompt engineer. And yes, we do. Oh, thank you, Jen, for doing that for me and putting that up for me. Yes, we do, but AI can also prompt itself and generate prompts. If you teach it and ask it to, it will come up with some prompts itself. So we do need to teach them how to ask good questions and how to refine our AI outputs and how to speak to AI. My husband always jokes with me because I can never get the Alexa to do what I want, or Siri. I hate Siri. Because I just want to talk naturally to it, but you need to be able to speak in a way that it can understand, and that's going to be more important now for our students to know and for people in general to understand. So we as librarians can help to fix that and to help change that. So we can serve as AI literacy coaches. We can help them understand what these tools can and can't do. We can also act as digital ethics leaders, and we can collaborate across content areas to integrate AI thoughtfully. So we need to start to talk about AI not just being this like cool new tool, but how can we embed it in a way that's going to be helpful and not just something that's just like, oh, let's use AI. How are we doing this ethically? How are we using it appropriately? How can it be helpful in science, history, math classes, and not be these like extra thing that we're doing, but really just sort of an extension of the work we are doing. So here are some ways that I think we can do this. I don't believe, and we need to be doing, spending a lot of money, coming up with a new budget line to teach ethics and to teach AI literacy. Polly, I see a question here and I'm going to ask it. How do we do it ethically when it has such an environmental impact? I want to answer that now because I think that's important. I think that we need to talk about that. When we are talking to students, when we are having any conversation about AI, we need to talk about the environmental impact. We need to talk about what is occurring and how it is occurring. We need to discuss how we are seeing a proliferation now of data centers and the need for more nuclear energy, how 3 Mile Island is now just coming, Microsoft basically bought it and is trying to revitalize it now because we need to do that. How companies and are starting to really look at some of the ways to deal with these environmental impacts. And I did hear a good conversation recently about that, where it was in like AI ethicists talking about it and saying like, yes, I agree there are environmental impacts. We cannot discredit them by any means. But also we are starting to see AI being used to solve some of those environmental impacts, to design new tools, to come up with ways to make like solar powered batteries that we weren't able to do before or hadn't thought of. So in some ways, in a lot of ways it's bad, but we are seeing in some ways AI being able to help to maybe fix some of those problems. It's not perfect, but I do always believe that we must talk about those and teach our students about the impact. So some of the things we need to do is we as librarians, I believe, are the perfect people to be teaching AI literacy. It is something that we keep hearing about, that everybody is talking about right now, how we have to teach AI literacy to people, that people need to understand this. Well, guess what, people? You don't need to like train all these 100 million teachers on how to do it. You have somebody who knows this. It's your librarian. We've always been here. We're always the ones who are doing like the technology anyway, teaching all these tools. Who taught when like Google came out? Who was the one who was doing all of that? That was us, the librarians. We have the skill set and knowledge on how to teach AI literacy, because honestly, AI literacy is not very different at all than information literacy, which is what our role is and what our role has always been. So these activities that I'm talking about are things that really you guys have always done. You've always been the ones to teach information literacy. So know that you can teach AI literacy because it's really not that different. You don't need a new budget line. You can use books to spark the conversation about it. You can highlight fiction and nonfiction books that talk about these tech ethics. There's a lot of good ones that have come out recently on this topic. I think Oprah's new book this month, I think, is even on AI ethics, or last month. I know I read recently that like one of her books that she just for her book club was related to this topic of AI ethics. So start with something like that. Start to get your students to have these conversations. Post hand-on sessions for students and staff and others to talk about and evaluate some of these AI tools and the content that comes out of them. And we must teach students how to use AI tools in research for brainstorming and fact checking while still maintaining academic integrity. It's so important because we know our students, let's be honest, we all know that everybody is going and using ChatGPT or one of those tools in their research process. So let's start having those conversations with them on how to do it in an ethical and good manner. We don't have to be like no AI because they're going to use it anyway. So let's talk to them about how to use it ethically and how there are some good ways to use these tools when doing research. So also, we need to talk about collaborating with the teachers. How do we co-plan these lessons? How do we teach students to engage with AI to generate content? There are some great tools like I have started to use with my students. My students struggle constantly in research with coming up with those keywords to search when they are trying to find database articles. They can never figure out what should I search, how do I search, how do I do that? I have started to have my students ask AI, here is my research question. What keyword terms might help me when I am searching databases? And using AI to help them with that. I have students that I am using with them. I use with them Storm by Stanford. If you haven't seen Storm by Stanford, it's a really great site. I like it because the data set is really good. It is pulling from great sources. And what Storm by Stanford is doing is they are creating these Wikipedia-like articles with the references to different topics that you put in. So my students always struggle. They get overwhelmed constantly with like, I don't know where to begin. There's so much here. I'm overwhelmed. It's too much. So what I've done is I've had my students, I created for my students, or I've had my students create these storm by, these Wikipedia-like references around their topic, use that, read through it, gain a better understanding of where they might want to look at their topic, what they might want to see, how they want to use it, and then we go and then search the databases. And we then go into the databases, we search for articles, but then what I do then is I then have my students take those articles that they found in their databases and put them into Notebook LM. And what Notebook LM is great for, Notebook LM is an incredible tool. It's honestly one of my favorite AI tools because you build your own data set and it uses that data set to then answer questions for you or to help you. And it also can build, and the thing that it's sort of known for right now is it makes these podcasts out of your data set. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, you will see that at the top of my newsletter, almost every week, there is a little deep dive. Um, uh, and that deep dive is made by Notebook LM. And so I use this as a way to help summarize because some of my students struggle with, or auditory learners and they do better listening to things. So at times, Notebook LM can create some great things. So what I have my students do is they take their research, they take their database articles, they put them into Notebook LM, and then they can start asking them those questions. That Oh yes, there's the one where Notebook LM podcasters realize they're not human. That's a funny, and there's also a good Saturday Night Live skit about it. But the Notebook LM I like because I feel like since you're building your own data set and the students, it's got a better chance of it not hallucinating as much, of giving better sources. And what I like also about Notebook LM is every time it returns an answer, it cites exactly where in the sources it got the information from, so students can go back and find that. So when I'm doing research with my students, when I'm talking to students, when I'm co-planning with teachers, I really like to talk about some of these tools that I think we can use in a good way, that can be helpful to them, that can help them when they're doing research and reflecting, that aren't taking away all the skills we want the students to learn, but they're enhancing them. And we do need to embed reflection points into projects so that students are asked to compare AI answers to peer-reviewed sources or to human answers. We should be developing rubrics that assess how you are using AI in an ethical way. We as librarians need to be teaching our students to cite AI, that MLA, APA, all of those have ways now to cite AI, and that we should be having those in there. I wrote an AI policy for my school district when I was on the school board and put AI into our plagiarism policy and basically left it up to the teachers to make the decision as to if they wanted AI in their classroom, but made it clear in the policy that if they were using AI and they weren't citing it and they were told they weren't using it, then it was plagiarism, and that whatever happened when you plagiarized a paper was also what was going to happen to you when you used AI in that way. So we need to be talking about these things with our students, helping our teachers or our school district develop policies related to AI, because it is so important that our students understand how to use it, but understand how to use it ethically. And that when we librarians lead this work, we raise the bar for everybody and we make it so that everybody can do better. You don't have to wait for that district policy to get started. I don't have a full district policy right now in my district. We are using it in some ways, but we don't have a full policy. So you can start by having those conversations with your students by integrating AI conversations into your lessons you're already teaching, like evaluating sources or digital citizenship. I've really started to bring those into the conversations that I'm having with my students. We talk about it. We talk about how to evaluate sources in the age of AI, how to be good digital citizens, some of the problems with AI, some of the good with AI. We start to have these conversations that and it's so important. You also need to model your own processes for evaluating AI tools. How are you using them? Model them for teachers, model them for others. Use displays to plant seeds to talk about AI. I'm going to start next year. I have a big TV screen where I have a Canva presentation that's always running on auto that goes through different things. This year, one of my new things I'm going to add to it is a game called Is It AI or Is It Not? Where students are going to evaluate a picture to see if it's real or AI. And I'll have a little prize for them, but it's get them started to have these conversations to talk about it. And it could be something just as simple as that. Or, have displays or books and conversations to do that. But we need to really start to think about this and set the tone so that everybody can start to have these conversations because they are so important to have. And really today is a great starting point to be able to do that. You are going to hear from some amazing speakers today that are going to talk to you about these things. And you're going to be able to have some incredible conversations. So, to end today, my conversation today, I have a link to a Wakelet that covers basically everything we have talked about today. I will add in that Wharton thing because I don't think that is in there because I just found out about it the other day. So I will add it to my Wakelet. So I have a Wakelet that covers all the tools and articles. And I also have a link here to my newsletter. I run the AI School Librarians newsletter on Substack. And what it does is I really started this as like a passion project where I was just learning about AI and started writing about it. And I thought others would. So I'm here to and then I just started sharing it out to everybody. So you can subscribe to that if you want to learn more information. I have a paid version, I have a free version. It doesn't matter. You're going to get some good information always. And I try to always cover not only the here's an AI tool, but the ethics around AI and to have conversations around it and include lesson plans and realistic ideas for you. So I am happy. I'm so thankful to have this opportunity to talk to you today. And I'm now going to take some time to answer your questions that you may have. Put them in the Q&A. We'll start to talk about them. But feel free to take and share anything you find today. And I'm hoping that this work, is helpful to you and that, you gain some knowledge from it. So now I'd love to hear from you. Do you have any questions? What are you seeing in your schools or libraries around AI? What are you hopeful or curious about? And let me see if I can get up to see the Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, or Susan.
Elissa, there Well, there was a question that came in with some of the registrations that
Uh-huh.
says, I'm not seeing much information through library-sponsored programs that raise alarms about AI and its uses, some of the things you mentioned today, privacy invasion, data scrapping, etc. Is there a collective plan in place for libraries to deal with those issues?
I don't believe there is. Um, and I think that is a problem. I think that you have to look at what is happening. I think you have to start to question some of the companies. Like, it was funny. I was looking, Follett is really pushing in their, and I'm talking school libraries now because I don't, public libraries don't use the same like opaque systems that we always use. But school libraries, basically, most of them use like Follett as their Destiny one, but they're starting to push like an AI feature in it. And it scares me a little because I'm starting to be like, what are you looking at? What are you checking and seeing? Like, I am very much like, I don't even share, I have it set in Follett that I can't see what kids have previously checked out because I don't want anyone to know that information. And some of these AI tools are a little scary right now, and we have to start to ask questions around them and to figure it out. I was talking with the Mackin people who have their card catalog, and they were like, we really aren't doing anything with AI in our system because we are concerned about some of those privacy things. And so because of that, they were like, I'm staying out of it a little. But I think we have to, as librarians, start to ask those questions. And yeah, especially in the era of book bans and attacks on libraries and museums, we have to be very careful about what our systems can see and start to have these conversations around it. But I haven't, you're right, I really haven't seen um, anything completely about that topic.
Thank you. Katie says, I work at a public library that collaborates with the school district, but I want to do more. How can I approach our school district school librarians about collaborating and offering activities for the students?
Oh, so are you wanting to do more around AI or just like in general? Because, well, I'll answer in general and basically say most of the time, we librarians, if you contact me and be like, I want, as a public librarian, and I'm like, I want to come in, I am so happy and excited about that because we are so overwhelmed that we're like, yes, come in, whatever you can do to help. So, like, my public life, when I was in one of my school districts, my public library was like, we're running a chess club. Can we we'd love to get more kids. Like they're not coming to the library as much to do it, but I think your kids would love chess. And so I was like, why don't you just come to the school during our lunch periods and hang out with our kids? And oh my God, did we have so many kids that were now playing chess and then started to come to the library to see the librarian that was helping play chess. Um, you know, and we started a chess club after school where he was like coming in and playing chess with these kids. All because like he was like we had a conversation about it. You know, the public library came to see my to do a drive with our students for like library cards. We love to do that. So just go in and just like talk to them and see like, hey, what are you struggling with? What can I help you with? How can I be there? And most of the time, if you have a good school librarian, they're going to be like so thankful to have you that they're going to, you know, be like, whatever you want to do. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks. Jess asks, how do you balance maintaining currency on new AI tools and developments with knowledge of the environmental consequences and ethical concerns? I want to know about the tools and address their drawbacks without contributing to these issues or appearing like a Luddite.
So I think there's going to always be that problem. Um, I think we're in a present moment where the, I don't know how to, I'm trying to figure out a way to say this. We're at almost a tipping point where the genie is out of the bottle. So we can't ignore anymore what is going on with AI. We have to start to understand it, figure out how we can use it in our lives, in our world, but also at the same time acknowledge the environmental impact, but know that we are never, I don't know if I can fully fix the environmental impact. I can talk about it. I can let my students know about it. I can have conversations with them, but I am almost at the point where it's like, I'm going to do what I can in my life to fix the environmental impact. So because of that, I drive a electric car. My other car is a hybrid car. I try to, I don't have central air. I have like, window air conditioners. I try to deal with what I can control of the environmental impact as much as possible. But at the same time, realizing that I can't not use it because of the environmental impact. Does that make sense? I don't know how to fully explain that. I think we're past the point where companies are going to go and do it anyway. So we can speak up about it. We can talk about ways to deal with it, but I don't think we can just be like, I'm not going to use it, if that makes sense.
Okay, I'm waiting to see if there's any more questions in the Q&A. But meanwhile, I think there was another question that came in earlier. Oh, you talked about this a little bit about citation, but what is your take on citing AI in work? For example, should we be citing when we use it to draft an outline?
So I know I struggle with this. So I've seen a really good examples put out, and I wrote about it in a newsletter. And now that you are at the top of my head, I'm forgetting exactly what it's called. I will find it. I will put it in the chat for you. But in my book and other places, I have seen that there's like a Creative Commons image that is put that you can add in. And it's like 4 or 5 different ways to look at AI. And I liked how they did it because it was like, well, it uses AI somewhat. It didn't have to do everything for me, but I did use it a little to help me with like editing and stuff like that. So I liked how they took care of it and did it. And I suggest to my students and others to use that type of tool if you're using AI at all. So if you see in my newsletter, it won't be on every time that I do my newsletter, but at the front of my newsletter, I have that there as like, hey, I do use AI to help me with like some of the editing because I am somewhat dyslexic. I was never like fully tested in school, but like I was always like, I would miss words and stuff like that. So when I write, I sometimes think that a word is there and it's not. So for me, AI has been really helpful because it's been able to help me with my editing process and to my spelling and stuff like that that I couldn't have done myself. So I use it a lot. And I try to help, acknowledge that as much as possible in everything I do. I think it depends on what your school district says on how they want that to be. I think we're scared to acknowledge the AI use, and I don't think we should be because we've been using AI forever. AI is what spell check is. Spell check's built on AI. Okay, you've been using spell check in your Word documents forever. You were using Grammarly to help you with your grammar. I mean, my kid was using Grammarly years ago. Like, they basically stopped teaching grammar in school. He was told to use Grammarly. And we never were like, oh my God, how dare they use Grammarly or like the thesaurus option in their computer. That's all, like all of that's AI. And so we have been using it and we just need to sort of acknowledge it and let it, you know, and put it out there and be like, yeah, it did help me. Yeah, until Grammarly got too expensive. I yeah, and they stopped all of that stuff. But it's true. Like, we have been using these AI tools forever, but because it sort of is now gotten a bad name, I don't know. I'm under the feeling that it's just better to cite it as much as possible. I hope that's a long-winded answer to that question, but I hope that I sort of answered it.
Okay, well, we have about 5 minutes left in the session. We have a question from Polly in the Q&A. How can we address the absolute push of generative AI in a society that doesn't understand the downfalls of it? The benefits of it speak for themselves, but the hallucinations, copyright, academic integrity are all huge issues. And yet this has been pushed out as if it is a vetted product. It isn't, and schools are right in the mix for the push. It seems like more need to be cautioned, and yet it makes us seem alarmist compared to those happily embracing it. So I don't know if you want to comment on that.
No, you're 100% correct. And I don't want you to think that I'm out here being like, AI is 100% good. Yeah, I do write a newsletter about it. Yeah, I do use it, but I also always try to acknowledge the ethics and problems behind it, which are copyright, which are, bad data sources, which are hallucinations, which are all of those things that you listed there. And I think what we do is we just have these conversations. We continue to talk to our students to show them real world examples of when AI goes bad, like Gronk the other day, like, 100 other ones that you could talk about, like examples. I mean, an example I have started talking to my students a lot about is the idea of the pizza. And I'm not sure if this is one that you guys know about, which is it's a great example, which is when one of the models came out. I think it was like the Gemini model, not too long ago. It was asked, "How do you keep cheese from falling off your pizza?" And the answer it gave was to use glue. Yep, the glue. And then everybody was like, how did it get that answer? So this podcast, which I love, called Search Engine, went in and did a whole podcast around like, how did we get to the point where it is telling us how to use glue? And it looked into how it was a Reddit thread where somebody was joking on Reddit, like about, because Reddit is Reddit and everybody jokes around and says stuff, and had written about like using glue and using rocks. And so it scraped that when it scraped things, and that was the data set it used to come up with the answer for using glue. But then search engine goes into much deeper and a much deeper conversation about it. But it really gets kids thinking about things and understanding not only like about how the data set gets there, but also some of the ethics behind it. And so you can use these real world examples to teach students to have these conversations and to get people talking. So when I talk to my students, we have these conversations and they really start to think about things in a way that they wouldn't otherwise. And I think that is so important, that we acknowledge the good and the bad related to AI, that we don't just go out there and are like, yay, AI. that we are talking about the problems that you talked about. I know, I don't know, but that's sort of how I do it. And I hope that helps you.
Great. Thank you very much. We are just about at the end of our time, so I'm
Yeah.
going to turn it over to my colleague, Caitlin, now to tell us what comes next.
Hi. Thank you so much, Alyssa. That was fantastic. And we're gonna take a quick little break. Next will be teaching about AI, not just with AI, bypassing the cheating issue. That will be at 10:45. So we'll see you back here in 15 minutes. We're gonna stop the recording. Feel free to stay logged in, or if you decide to sign off, you can log back in with the link in your email.
Susan, I think you need to stop the recording. I don't have control over it.
Okay, one moment.